There are a ton of male fragrance reviewers online, but very few of those reviewers are over the age of 40. And of those over 40, very few put out videos specifically for mature men. That's really important because when I hit 40, everything changed. My values changed, the way I looked at the world, the way I dressed, and the fragrances that I wanted and liked changed. So this is a fragrance video just for older men, men over 40, mature men, and that's important. One fragrance that really bugs me that's targeting directly mature men is Dior Homme Parfum 2025. And it's scary because it's really nice. It's very modern. It's got a little bit of iris off the top, so there's a powdery, sophisticated element. That's the kind of thing that we like. It's got the sweetness. It's a beautiful fragrance. The problem is there are a couple of other fragrances on the market, very similar quality, very similar performance, but the price is significantly lower and they don't have the marketing, at least at this point, that Dior Homme Parfum does. The fragrance that's the most similar to it is Armani Code Parfum. Now this came out in 2022. It is very modern. It's not exactly like Parfum 2025. It has a sage note, so it goes in a little, and I mean little bit more of an aromatic direction. So you pick up that sage. This has more iris, so it's a little bit more sophisticated, but it has an ambery quality. It has a tonka note here, so it has a little bit of sweetness. Parfum 2025 uses an actual amber note, but that sweetness is very similar performance. There's just absolutely, to me anyway, no reason to buy Parfum 2025, especially when you've got another one, which is Jean Paul Gaultier's Le Mal de Parfum. Again, very modern fragrance. This came out in late 2020. Now this one, again, is not exactly the same. It is a little sweeter. They actually use a vanilla note, but it's not a crazy amount of sweetness. It's toned down with cardamom, and it's a beautiful fragrance. It's got an aromatic quality. It's got the patented Jean Paul Gaultier lavender. It's got similar performance. So I think these two fragrances are far better options, and here's the main reason why Parfum 2025 is so dangerous. You can get this online for $88. You can get this for $91. So $90 is what you really should be paying for this type of fragrance for a 75 milliliter bottle, not $171, which is the lowest price I could find for Dior Homme Parfum 2025. It's just marketing. Go with these instead. Olivier Creed, the in-house perfumer at Creed, was an equestrian, and he loved to holiday in Ireland. In the early 80s, he would go there regularly. He loved to ride his horse on the lush green fields and the mossy forests and ride along the coast, and he just found Ireland to be so fresh. He really wanted to embody it in fragrance form. So he went back to Paris. He teamed up with Pierre Bourdon, another in-house perfumer at Creed, and they came up with a fantastic solution. What they did basically was completely innovative. They got a lot of violet leaf. Now, violet is supremely fresh. Violet leaf is even fresher, and they did an overdose of it, combined it with lemon and lemon verbena, so they have a super fresh and airy citrus scent, and with that they made Creed's Green Irish Tweed. And the only reason you haven't heard of this is because of the price. It's super expensive. You may have heard of it. It's certainly worn by a ton of celebrities, but what really was the breakthrough fragrance in the 1990s was Pierre Bourdon. He left Creed, went to Davidoff, and he created Davidoff Cool Water. That's a scent you'll be much more familiar with. However, this fragrance is much more sophisticated and I think better suited to a mature gentleman. This has iris that is noticeable when you spray it on the skin. The two are very similar on paper. On skin, you really can tell the Green Irish Tweed is superior and at least double the performance in terms of longevity. That's perfect for mature men. Oh boy, a lot of the fragrance lines lately have been doing something that annoys me and a ton of people in the fragrance community. They release an eau de toilette that's really popular, and then they'll make a flanker that is slightly different, and then they'll make another flanker that is slightly different from that. And then by the time you know it, they'll have 10 flankers. All of them smell very, very similar. I will say that Scandal has kind of done that a little bit with Scandal Parfum. The similarities between this and the eau de toilette Well, it's pretty close. However, I gotta admit, parfums are generally targeted to a mature audience, and they knew what they were doing. This parfum version, what they've done is they've taken out a little bit of the sweetness. So it's a tonka caramel note in the original, and they've taken the caramel note out of this, so it's not quite as sweet. And then they also added a geranium note off the top, and so it's fresher. So it's not as sickeningly sweet, which is not as youthful. And I think the geranium note really helps here. I think this is one of the few fragrances that, of the flankers that are like excessive, this one is definitely worth a purchase for an older gentleman. It is a parfum. It's more expensive, but it is longer lasting than the Eau de Toilette, and it's definitely more mature. As I've gotten older, as my nose has gotten better, I've gotten into more fragrances. I am less and less likely to buy clones. However, there are a few exceptions out there. If fragrance has been discontinued and hard to get, that's a good place to get a clone. And also if it's like super expensive, but the clone still has to be good. And I think this is Shiyaaka by Khadlaj. This is a fantastic clone of Amouage's Reflection Man. It's an absolutely gorgeous, very mature, very classy fragrance, and I think they've done a really good job here. So both this and Reflection Man have a ton of iris, a couple of white florals, and a lot of rosemary. Now rosemary is like, think minty on steroids, and that combination is absolutely perfect for somebody over 40. It's a gorgeous fragrance. This doesn't quite perform as strongly as Reflection Man, although it's not bad at all. I get a creamier version of Reflection Man here, whereas that rosemary really pops with Reflection Man, but that's not a negative calling this creamy. It's just a slightly different feel. I kind of like the creamy element I get here. This one was really good right out of the bottle, 6 hours. Again, I don't recommend clones, but this one, you can't find it. And there's a reason for it. It's good. I finally got a chance to try the original M7, the very first oud fragrance for Western audiences, and I can honestly say that I do think reformulating it and coming up with M7 Oud Absolu was a good idea. Now, I like oud. I'm an experienced guy with fragrances. I know a lot about them. I like oud already. So for me, I like M7, but boy, oh boy, is it pungent. This is a toned down version for Western/European audiences, and it still packs a punch. It's still there. This is still really good. It's just not as crazy strong, which I can totally see the original M7 putting people off. So if you're an older guy and you really like something more exotic, oud is fantastic, and this would be wonderful to get. So what I like about it is not just a ton of oud, although there is a lot of it. It's oud and some warm resins. There's labdanum, which is more sweet, and there's myrrh, which is more balsamic, a little bit more dark. So you've got those two warm resins. You got patchouli, gives it an earthy feel, and then you got mandarin, which is a nice contrast note for the oud. I find the longevity here is a straight 6 hours. Been very consistent with that, which is fine. But the projection here is still really good, so be careful with this one. But yeah, something more exotic, still YSL, it's high quality. M7 Oud Absolu. Drakkar Noir absolutely had to be on this list. It's the only fragrance that I wore back in the day when I was dating in the early 90s. This is a fantastic fragrance, and I think it still works today. It's an old-fashioned fougere, but it was ahead of its time a little bit. There was a little bit of sweetness here. It had an amber note. It had a resinous note. I find this sweeter than most barbershops. I mean, look, it is a barbershop fragrance, so you're still going to get that herbal feel. There are 11 herbal notes here, including lavender and oak moss. But I do think that a little bit of sweetness helps. I think this is a beautiful fragrance. The only real problem with this is the modern bottle has been watered down quite a bit. Now, they are cheaper. If you want to get your fix, get one of these. Overspray and spray on clothes. I think most people have no idea just how long a fragrance lasts when you spray on clothes. It'll last forever. I don't know about the projection, but you'll definitely still smell it, and it smells really good. Drakkar Noir. I have never understood why so many young people always look at Jaipur pour Homme Eau de Parfum and say that it's old school. I just don't get it because there's a ton of vanilla in here. There's also a ton of spices. There's cinnamon and nutmeg. I mean, it really smells modern to my nose. Yes, there's a little twist because there's quite a bit of citrus here. That is a characteristic of the turn of the century, but it really doesn't take away from the fact that there's a ton of vanilla and spices. So you've got that lemon and lemon verbena at the top, you got the spicy, you got the vanilla, and you've got a very inexpensive fragrance with a cool bottle at a really good price. And the key to this is performance. One of the better fragrances on the market, price for performance ratio. This will last a long time, and it's lovely. It really bugs me that I have to get up here all the time and defend Old Spice. Sure, it's inexpensive. Sure, it's everywhere. But how many men's fragrances were released in 1938 and were worn by men who stormed the beaches of Normandy, and yet today you see Old Spice everywhere? There's a reason for it. The scent is lovely. It's a beautiful spicy fragrance, but here's the key to it. There's a powdery element to this. There's a sophisticated element to this. It's not just Old Spice. It's an old floral spice because there's a ton of carnation here, and it adds a powdery quality. Now, carnation's an interesting note because it's the only floral note I know that is very spicy, right? So you've got that, but you've also got the powderiness of the carnation as well. And then throw in a bunch of spices to boot. There's anise in here. There's cinnamon and nutmeg in here. So you get tons of spices. You get that floral feel, but the thing to me that I think is underrated here is that powdery element, that sophisticated element. I still think this is 100% worth a wear. The only problem, again, you're talking about is performance, but it's so inexpensive. It's even cheaper than Drakkar Noir, so you can really put a lot on, and you'll smell great. I mean, I'm sorry, it smells good. I know the young people associate this smell with old men, but I mean, good is good. In 1974, Givenchy released a classic fragrance, Givenchy Gentleman. It took them over 40 years. But in 2018, they got another fragrance in the Gentleman line that really worked. This is the EDP, and that entire line is super popular. However, it is a little bit sweet. I do think it can totally be worn by people over 40, no question, because it's got a sophisticated iris, but it is very sweet. So what Givenchy did was they created the Gentleman Society line that was definitely targeted to a more mature audience. This is the Eau de Toilette. But I think all of the fragrances in this line are really good. That's exactly what they're doing. They're targeting you. So what they do is they tone down the sweetness. In this particular case, the vanilla note is lower than what you get in the Gentleman line. They add a little bit of cardamom. They add a little bit of an aromatic note with a narcissus, which is a spring flower. So it comes off as kind of green. So it adds an aromatic element to it, and then a lot of wood. So it's like a toned down level of sweetness, a little bit more aromatic, a little bit spicier. It really works for older people, and I absolutely love that line. Highly recommend it. And I really like the EDT itself. I've tested this one a lot. So yeah, I like every couple months, I'm going to do this. I'm going to target a video for older gentlemen because, as I said, your taste change over time. Who you are changes over time. What you value changes over time. And that is reflected in the fragrances you like. Thanks for watching.